Hey everybody, happy Monday. Sun is shining, so that's a good thing. We are still trapped, not going out hopefully, but I hope everyone's well and making the best of the situation. Um, so I just wanted to introduce Lear. I'm going to probably make a few of these videos just touching on some key things as you get reading. But I wanted to just talk about Shakespearean tragedy and the way that the play is structured and the way the plot works. So, those of you who are in Europe will recognize this picture as a skyline of London. You can see Tower Bridge over, and then Tower of London is over just to the right of the bridge and up a bit. You can see the White Tower, part of London. Then you can see the Walkie Talkie building. The Shard is on the left. And anyway, we took a boat down that river not so long ago. So and it looks like we just got out in time. But anyway, I digress. So I want to just talk about the plot structure of Shakespearean tragedies, of which Lear is, in my opinion, the best. It's my favorite Shakespearean play. I think it's super sad, but really brilliant. So let's get going. Okay, so you might recognize this shape as that checkmark diagram that we've used for plot analysis since grade 9. So this one is more of a pyramid shape. It's known as Freytag's pyramid or Freytag's pyramid. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is basic shape of a plot. And so what I've done is I've divided everything into the 5 acts. Every Shakespearean play has 5 acts. And along the bottom, you have the terms that you're used to dealing with when you diagram a plot. So there's the introduction, there's the rising action, there's the turning point, there's the falling action, there's the ending. All right. So along the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the actual Greek words because this structure is taken from Greek tragedy, from Greek drama. So I thought at this point I can introduce some of those ideas. So the introduction in Greek is known as the protasis. And what happens in the protasis is all the things that I've taught you. You get the exposition, which is the explanation of the introduction to the story. You get the main characters are all appear, or at least almost all of them appear. The setting is made clear, and there's a tone or a mood established. Now that mood and tone can change over a play as long as Lear, but the basic prevailing mood is established. You also, in Shakespearean plays, you get the subplots introduced. So, for example, in Hamlet, you had the ghost was introduced. There was a discussion of Fortinbras, and then also Polonius and Ophelia and Laertes were introduced all in Act 1. So all the 3 plots were set in motion together with the main conflict or conflicts, depending on how many conflicts. Every subplot might have its own conflict, or some of the subplots may work around the same conflict. In any event, that's what you get. So in Lear, it takes place in ancient England. The mood starts out a bit lighthearted with a discussion between Gloucester and Kent, but then it quickly turns serious and then actually quite dark once Lear enters and comes up with this ridiculous idea to divide his kingdom into 3 and to give the daughter who tells him she loves him most effectively the best piece. And anyway, we'll talk more about that later. But all the main characters are introduced. So you get Lear, and you get Cordelia, the youngest daughter. You get Regan, the middle daughter, and you get Goneril, the oldest daughter. Goneril's married to Albany, and Regan is married to Cornwall. You get Kent. You get Edmund and Edgar, who are the 2 sons of Gloucester. So every important person in the play, with the exception possibly of the fool, is introduced right away in the first scene of the play. Then in Act 2, you get what you're used to calling the rising action. The Greeks called it the epitasis. And in this part of the play, the tension mounts. So in Lear, there are 2 plots. There's the plot with Lear and his daughters, but then there's a subplot involving Gloucester and his sons. Both of these plots ramp up in their tension through the 2nd act and into the 3rd act. And then, as you know, in the 3rd act, there is the climax, or the turning point. And that's where the main character, in this case is Lear, experiences something or makes a decision that creates an inevitable conclusion. And of course, we know in this case it's going to be a fatal decision that's going to produce a tragic conclusion. And then in Act 4, we have what the Greeks called the katastasis. And we call it the falling action. And this is where the results of the decision play out, right? So in Lear, the main scene is the storm scene. It's probably one of the most famous scenes in all of literature, where Lear wanders out into a storm and he goes mad. He loses his grip on reality, but in the process, he also realizes his own foolishness. He realizes his mistake, and he changes. Right? Fortunately, because it's a tragedy, it's a little too little too late, and it doesn't work out the way he hoped. It almost does, but not quite. And so in the fourth act, you have some of the outplaying of this key moment, this climax scene in Act 3. And then in Act 5, you have what the Greeks called the catastrophe, a word that you've probably heard before. And a catastrophe is anything that's just a disastrous situation. Well, it comes from Greek tragedy. Catastrophe is the resolution of the plot, and it's, of course, negative and tragic in Lear and in Greek tragedy, and this always involves the death of the main character and frequently many others. Lear has the second highest body count of any Shakespearean tragedy, with 10, 11. I have to go back and recount. I think it's 10. No, it might be 11. Anyway, Titus Andronicus clocks in at 13. So that play outdoes them all, but Lear is the second highest one. And the ending is a denouement. You'll recall the three endings are a denouement in which all the loose ends are tied up and there's no big questions left unanswered, no real surprises. There's the ironic twist in which at some point very near the ending, something unusual happens or unpredictable happens, and it changes the whole understanding of what went before it. And then there's finally the cliffhanger, which is the kind of to be continued ending, where it's like, what? So, something happens and you're like, well, what happens next, right? But tragedies are all denouements. They're all tragic. And we know, it's like you can watch the movie Titanic as many times as you want, but the ship sinks every time. So hopefully that's helpful as you read through the play. You can anticipate some things. You can anticipate things growing in Act 2, a big moment in Act 3, the storm scene, and then the outplaying of those events toward Act 5, and then at the end, the tragic result. And Lear is truly a tragic result. I'll be back with another screencast about something else that's hopefully helpful soon. Have a great day.